Today's video, we're breaking down the 10 things I wish I knew before playing Helldivers 2. Whether you're brand new or just looking to sharpen your skills, these tips will help you be a better teammate, keep you alive longer, and help you complete your missions to spread democracy. Now, when you get into the game, you're going to be unlocking a lot of different weapons throughout the game as you progress. My advice is try out these weapons when you unlock them to see how they fit your playstyle or how it works against the enemies that you're fighting. Most of the seasoned Helldiver 2 players have specific setups that are their go-tos depending on the enemies and the environments that they're going to be fighting in, so you need to learn what yours are going to be. Moving on to tip number 2, while you continue to experiment with your weapons, you should also start to think about what a balanced loadout looks like. Now, I recommend a balanced loadout unless you play with a specific set of friends and you coordinate your builds to work together. And a basic build like this would look something like a high rate of fire weapon for hordes, some sort of armor piercing for medium to heavy enemies, and some sort of explosive. Now, for a low level build out that you don't really have to work too much to unlock, it would look something like a machine gun like this, with an expandable anti-tank rocket and a basic machine gun turret, as this combination is a great starter point for beginners. Moving on to tip number 3, and that is you don't need to engage every enemy patrol that you come across. It's easy to get swept up in wanting to see some action in the lower level difficulties, but as you change this and go from easy, medium, and harder difficulties, this becomes even more crucial. The reason behind this is it can eat into a lot of time that you could be spending exploring the rest of the map or completing objectives or side objectives of that nature. So if you see something like a side alley to avoid enemies, it might be the right move. Now, tip number 4 goes hand in hand with tip number 3, and that is when it's time to walk away from a fight. There are going to be times when you engage with the patrol, then all of a sudden you're ending up in an endless loop of never-ending patrols that seem to keep engaging you. This again can be a huge time sink and ammo waste, or even use multiple reinforcement tickets reviving players who keep dying. This usually becomes an issue when people die with samples and then think they can run back and get them with their weapons, but know when it's time to call it quits. You can even leave and go do some objectives and come back for the equipment and samples later before extracting. Let's move on to tip number 5, which is reinforcing fallen friendlies. Now, this one can take a little bit to understand and it can be different in situations, but most of the time you want to be aware of calling in friendlies, as you don't want them to spawn in the middle of a patrol of enemies. A good rule of thumb here is if you were in a firefight of your life, it might be best to finish out that firefight or let one of your teammates attempt the reinforcement instead. And also note that if you are on the other side of the map from your team or pretty far away and someone goes down, it might not be a good idea for you to call them in. Again, let your team call them in so that they can get their equipment back easier. Now, tip number 6 is a quick one, but that is friendly fire is very much a real thing in this game. Try your best to avoid hitting teammates when you're trying to protect them. Weapons like the arc thrower are very notorious for hitting enemies and friendlies at the same time, and it might be a good idea to ping things like the hell bomb when it's armed so teammates are aware that an explosion is coming soon. Now, for tip number 7, it's sort of on the same lines as friendly fire, but this is for those auto-targeting stratagems that include things like guard dogs or turrets, as these can easily kill you or your teammates if you're not paying attention. Now, I tend to put the turrets in areas where I know that you can easily gain cover and stuff like that. As for the guard dogs themselves, you need to tend to learn where you can stand to avoid friendly fire from them. But if the arc guard dog is being used by, like, say your teammates are running them, you kind of want to stay away from those. And if you're running the arc guard dog, you're going to want to stay away from your teammates, as they're really good about killing friendlies and enemies at the same time. Now, number 8 is going to be dive to survive, and you will begin to learn early on in the game that diving can be super beneficial. Diving can put out flames if you're set on fire, it can reduce explosive damage as well, and keep you from being knocked down. Now, it's a great example is when you're getting chased by enemies and maybe you're out of run, you can actually dive to kind of avoid their attacks as well. Up next for tip number 9 is mark and communicate on the map. Communication can be really vital in parts, and telling your team where you're headed for the objective can have them head the same way to back you up. Other needs for marking are going to be for things like the bunker, which actually require 2 individuals to open that, so be sure to ping the button to let your team know that you need assistance. Now lastly for tip number 10, and that is for the relay tower objectives. Now a lot of people think you need 2 people to complete these, but if you start at the screen and see how much you need to turn the dish, you can wait and listen for it to make a noise as you can hear now, and this lets you know that it's in the right position now and you can head back over to the console and complete the objective. Now that's it for my 10 beginner tips for you. Hopefully you learned something if you're new to the game, and as always, if you liked the video, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one.